This is the China Hollywood Greenlight podcast, episode number 36.
And rolling sound, quiet.
Here we go. Ready?
Speeding. 120, take 7.
And action.
This is Caryn McCann, the host of the China Hollywood Greenlight podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. If you like the show, please go to your favorite podcast app, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find this podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes at chinahollywoodgreenlight.com/podcast and look for this episode, which is number 36. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue on their path to achieving their own green light. And today's quote is from Winston Churchill, who said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Today's podcast is sponsored by The China List. The China List is a membership website to connect writers and producers in Hollywood and China. Membership for producers and talent reps is free, and you can post writing assignments or call for script submissions on our private writing jobs page. Just go to https://chnlist.com. Writers, for a limited time, you can sign up for a free 60-day trial. You can also post a request for a Chinese or Western writing partner on our private writing jobs page. Use this link to access the free trial. https://chnlist.com/promo. A quick update on what I'm working on. I'm working on a low-budget film script and will have the first draft done next week. It's a pleasure to write, and I feel like the script is actually writing itself, so I must be in the zone, which is always a lot of fun. I will also be setting up meetings for the American film market, which, as you know, is virtual again this year. So lots of stuff happening this fall. And now, here is the main segment. Today's guest is Davy Williams, a.k.a. the Mandarin-speaking Montanan, who has appeared in more than 50 films, dramas, variety shows, and other programs, mostly Chinese productions. Born and raised in Montana, Davy worked in LA in the early 2000s until he moved to China in 2006. He achieved fame on the Chinese version of Star Search in 2008. Then, for the next 10 years, worked in China, working on the occasional stateside project. He is fluent in Mandarin and is the author of the book Move to China. Davy is also a producer and screenwriter focusing on Chinese American action comedies. His first writer-producer credit was for the action film Chinese-Speaking Vampires, which was recently released on Amazon Prime. His second feature film that he also wrote and produced, called Slant Streets, was filmed on location in Montana in 2020 and will soon be available. He is also a martial artist, singer, and musician. So, Davy, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet everybody.
Yes. Well, let's start with some background information. First of all, why did you want to enter the Chinese market to begin with?
Oh, I went there in 2006, and once I started learning Mandarin, I got acting jobs and commercials and got more and more involved in the entertainment industry as bilingual actor, host, and singer. So it turned into a good career for a while there with TV dramas and commercials and movies. So I did that for about 8 years in China.
Did you go over there strictly? Was that the purpose of going over, was to act?
Not really. I just thought it'd be fun. I thought at the time I was in Los Angeles, met a lot of Chinese people and people that have been to China, and it sounded quite exciting there. So I wanted to take a trip, checked it out, and I enjoyed it. So I stayed for a long time.
Okay. Well, you, besides being an actor, you're also a producer and a writer. So my next question is, what are 2 or 3 main tasks you do on a typical day? Not that any day is typical these days, but.
Mm-hmm. On writing days, I just try to get at least one scene done, or maybe one page if possible, and try to write about 3 days a week at least, and try to get my next screenplay down as soon as possible. But it takes several months to get one done for sure.
Of course, of course. Now you've got some films on IMDb that you wrote and produced. How do you find your business partners, and how do you suggest the listeners find perhaps a Chinese producer or American?
When I first started for Chinese-speaking vampires pre-production in 2019, I had no idea how I could get to that much money. I didn't have it myself, of course. So I thought and prayed about it, and I went to an acting seminar that I was a speaker at in this summer of 2019, and was a speaker just on how to be a bilingual actor and go overseas. And then I had people would come up to you afterwards, and one older gentleman was kind of like a small investor, and he said he'd be interested if I sent him the pitch deck and business plan and everything. So I did all that, and he was interested, and he was my first investor. And after that, I went on WeChat groups and talked about, being an actor in a Hollywood film, and whoever's interested would be a small investment to be part of it. And had about 6 Chinese Americans sign up for that. So we got all we needed and started production in early 2020.
You mentioned you did a seminar for actors who wanted to work in China. Is that sort of a growing, or what was the seminar?
It was just for this actors weekend, and they did like one per year in LA, one per year in New York, and these kids would pay several $1,000s to come for a couple days, and the speakers would help them work on their resume, their headshots, and listen to a bunch of speakers, some producers and actors, and I was just one of the speakers at the end.
Okay, great. Well, you've done a lot of content, films, dramas, TV shows, acting stuff in China. Can you talk about an obstacle that you encountered in a past project? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
Many obstacles. As an actor in China, we would sometimes their timing and organization skills were a little lacking. For instance, in Hollywood, the crew, everybody sets up, and then, okay, bring the talent over.
Uh-huh.
Now, in China, actors get there at the same time as everyone else, or even before. So you're sitting in the van for 2 hours as they lazily set up.
Oh, boy.
So in addition, there's no craft services on set. You get a little plasticky lunch meal. So it's nice coming back to LA, and if you're an extra in LA, you're actually treated better almost than an actor in China. So all the craft services and stuff that you get. But as for the production things, in Hollywood, it's fairly easy if you have a good line producer and AD people lining up the actors in the shoot schedule. So I made sure that we had a pretty good team for that in place. And a lot of them were just out of New York Film Academy in Burbank, and they knew how to do it, and they're hungry to work and get the schedule and everything going. So it was a good experience.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a few obstacles. That leads to my next question. If you could magically solve 2 current problems, what would they be?
For my personal business, or for what else?
Let's take one personal and one more macro.
I would like to instantly find the proper financing for every film I want to make.
Okay, good.
And, for macro, I would say let's make Hollywood go back to how it was many years ago when things were simpler. And
When you say simpler, what do you mean?
like today, I'm almost afraid to try to go film the next film there because of all their regulations now.
Oh boy, right. Yeah, that's a problem. A lot of productions have shut down or
they were having a bunch of requirements now that weren't there before. So I'm thinking, how do I do it?
right.
Or else out of state, maybe.
Yeah. Now, you on your bio, you said you are doing interested in some action comedies. Is that sort of the future projects you're looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think the Chinese studios are looking for? So 2 questions in one.
The challenge with a vampire movie, my first one was Chinese-speaking vampires, is that China doesn't allow vampire movies in their mainstream theaters. So that's a big challenge, and we've done okay, in the U.S. and internationally, but just not China. So in the future, make a comedy not related to zombies or vampires,
Right.
You want to get it into China theaters or online streaming.
And then what do you think the Chinese studios might be looking for?
They like anything big budget with name actors and stuff that's kind of generic or pro China, and
right.
So that's why they're big into the Marvel type of movies, because those are just like PG, nothing political, just action, but not gore, nothing too crazy. So they're big into stuff like that.
Okay. Now, here's a trick question. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
You have the movie website?
You mean for the Chinese-speaking vampires?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. Here's a question, kind of a side question. What are the pros and cons for a Westerner acting in a Chinese film? You mentioned that craft services might be an issue. Anything else? Or are there pros? Are there other cons?
So the pro is that someone like me that speaks the language and is good at what I do and decent looking is that you can have a lot of steady work and TV dramas as a middle, kind of middle to top range of a character. You're never going to be the lead.
Right.
Now, when I first got to China, I started to have some success, and I would write down my goal. Yes, I want to be like Jackie Chan. I want to be like a lead in China. I'm going to be famous.
Right.
But it won't happen. It didn't happen. The reason is they won't allow it to happen for one reason. And then they see most foreigners as looking pretty similar as it is.
Okay.
Unless you're the lead, you're not going to be recognized on the streets. And so that dream of becoming famous over there didn't happen. But I'm happy that I at least made a good living for a few years doing what I love. So,
yes. Well, you have quite a lot of experience, so that I'm sure will translate over here. Now, what advice can you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market? Besides, don't do vampires and zombies in your film.
I would say learn the language, and that always helps you get into doors and make everybody remember you over there. And it helps to live over there, especially Beijing. That's where most content is made or started. And lastly, I would just, if you are making content or script writing or making movies, just remember it's got to be fairly pro-China or fairly neutral politically. No extensive violence or sexual situations or language. And then get name actors if you can, and it has a good chance of being in the theaters and online over there.
Does it have to be mainland Chinese name actors? Could it be Hong Kong or Taiwanese, or is it mainly they're looking for mainland Chinese?
Oh, I meant just American name.
Okay. Okay, great.
I like to have the occasional, or they really require at least one A-list actor in most of their movies in the theaters over there that are American movies. So, yeah.
And when you say Beijing is where the content is, would you say for a Westerner or an actor, choose Beijing over, say, Shanghai?
Yeah, for sure. All of the production companies are located in Beijing. So they start pre-production there. The actors go to auditions there. And then they move out for production to places like Hangdian, which is like all these little old school movie studios and stuff. And yeah, but it all starts in Beijing.
Okay. And then now my last question is, in conclusion, would you like to share any social media details or website links? Maybe now you could mention that Chinese Speaking Vampires website and any other social media you'd like to add.
Yeah, it's ChineseSpeakingVampires.net, and Instagram is Chinese Speaking Vampires. And then I just made a Facebook page, but it doesn't have much on it. That's Chinese Speaking Vampires. And then IMDB. That's about it.
Okay. Well, Davey, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you at the premiere.
Okay.
And now for my 3 key points and 3 takeaways. 3 key points. Number 1, pros to being a Western actor in China. If you speak Mandarin, you can get steady work. Number 2, cons to being a Western actor in China. Davey says American line producers and assistant directors are more organized than their counterparts in China. Usually on a Western set, the crew takes an hour or 2 to set up, and then the actors arrive. Not so in China. The actors arrive with or even before the crew. So your day has an hour or 2 extra of sitting around built into it. Number 3, craft services. Craft services is different from catering. Craft services refers to food that is always available to the crew and extras while they're working. Catering handles full meals. Shooting a film requires long hours. There's a saying that goes, a crew runs on its stomach. Be aware that according to Davey, craft services in China are spotty or non-existent. 3 takeaways. Number 1, what are Chinese studios looking for? Chinese studios like big-budget spectacles with name actors. Davey calls these films generic and pro-China. Nothing political, lots of action, and absolutely no vampires and no ghosts. Why can't you have supernatural characters in a Chinese film? Well, see the article in the show notes, the link to the article, Why is the Chinese Communist Party Afraid of Ghosts? In it, the article says, in Chinese literature and folk tales, quote, evil ghosts serve as a metaphor for corrupt officials. The report quoted a British artist born in China named Wen Jin, who said, banning ghost stories sounds almost absurd and laughable to the West, and yet it carries the deep-rooted historical fear that the government feels about its own people. Additionally, you can see my blog post, 4 Ways to Beat the Chinese Censors. Just check the link in the show notes. Takeaway number 2. Leading roles are not for Westerners in China. Even if you speak Mandarin. Well, you could get steady work and even middle to top range characters, but just know you'll never be the lead. According to Davey, China won't allow a foreigner to be the lead. Number 3, how to make it as an actor or filmmaker in China. First of all, you have to learn the language and then live in Beijing. That's your best bet. If you're a filmmaker, your content needs to be neutral politically and, like always, get name actors. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcast app. Producers and talent reps find writers and script on the China list. Writers get discovered today. Sign up for a free trial, a free 60-day trial. Just go to https://CHNLIST.com/promo. And I'll see you at the premiere. Thanks. Bye. you are dead.